Do you remember what started the Second World War? Initially, it was just a territorial dispute between Germany and Poland. The Germans wanted back the German territory, which had been taken away from Germany and given to Poland at the end of the First World War. But when the Germans, under Hitler, began taking back that territory in September 1939, Britain and France declared war on Germany, ostensibly to protect the freedom of Poland. The Germans had done nothing against Britain and France and wanted very much to remain at peace with those countries, but the politicians of Britain and France had other considerations. The fact that the Soviet Union also invaded Poland in September 1939 was all right with Britain and France. They didn't declare war on the Soviet Union because the Soviet Union was, for all practical purposes, under Jewish rule. They did declare war on Germany because Germany under Hitler had broken loose from the grip of the Jews and had freed the German media and German education and German finance and German politics and German culture from Jewish influence, and was in the process of kicking all of the Jews out of Germany. That was the reason for the Second World War, not Polish freedom or Polish territorial integrity. That was the reason why, when in April 1943, the German army discovered the mass graves of some of the 25,000 Polish officers and intellectuals murdered by Jewish communists, and invited the International Red Cross and journalists from many nations to view the evidence. The controlled media in Britain and the United States ignored the evidence and blamed the atrocity on the Germans. That was the reason why, at the end of the war, those countries which had gone to war ostensibly to ensure the freedom of Poland agreed to turn Poland and Latvia and Hungary and the rest of Eastern Europe over to the communist butchers who had carried out the massacre of the elite of the Polish nation. Of course, the communists economically drained and ruined all of these countries. And these communists were Jews, which is to say, the Jews were the prime movers in the communist regimes imposed on those countries after the war, and also were the primary beneficiaries of the regimes. In Hungary, for example, there was the regime of the communist Jew, Mátyás Rákosi, followed by another communist Jew, Ernő Gerő. In Romania, the communist Jewess Anna Pauker ruled the country as first secretary of the Central Committee. In Poland, the Minister for State Control was the communist Jew, Roman Zumbrowski. In Czechoslovakia, the Secretary General of the Communist Party was the communist Jew, Rudolf Slansky. In Yugoslavia, while Tito held the spotlight, the communist Jew, Moshe Tiadi, was the chairman of the National Assembly and president of Serbia. And so it went. And this in a Europe whose Jews supposedly had all been holocausted by Hitler. There were tens of millions of Hungarians and Poles and Latvians and Serbs and other Eastern Europeans under the yoke of communism who were wishing that Hitler had actually holocausted the Jews. These communist Jews were so hated by the Eastern Europeans they ruled and exploited that there was constant turmoil. And after the Hungarian uprising in 1956, many of the leading communist Jews were replaced by Gentile frontmen, while the Jews continued to exploit the people from behind the scenes.